Awesome. I am super excited to be here today. I actually moved to Denver a couple years ago, so it's always awesome to speak at local events. So if you take anything from my talk today, it's don't be better alone. Bring others with you. Don't do things in a silo. As our industry is evolving and as things are changing, keep that in mind. It's always important for us to share our learnings and tell our stories, and as a result, our company improves, the entire industry improves. And one of my favorite ways to tell stories is through incidents. It affects everyone in your organization in one way or another. Through things that we didn't expect to happen, it becomes a mirror into how our organizations actually work versus how we just think they work. And it actually helps us advocate for change. So, hi, I'm Nora Jones. I am not a singer, for those of you who don't know who I am. I do like karaoke, though. I'm the CEO and founder of Jelly.io, which is an incident analysis platform. And I've worked at Netflix, Slack, Jet.com, which was acquired by Walmart. And I've lived in many different places. I've written a couple books on chaos engineering and how organizations' ability to inject failure purposefully is actually a business advantage. And I keynoted on that at MGM Grand with the CTO of Amazon at reInvent back in 2017. This whole journey led to me founding a community called Learning from Incidents in Software. And learning from incidents in software is about what I'm about to talk to you about today. It's about using past incidents to figure out what's going on in our organizations and using past incidents to help us unveil our expertise and build more of it. I have made an entire business now, actually, also out of learning from incidents. It's called Jelly.io. I spent so much time at these previous companies. I kept almost building the same tooling at each of these organizations, and I was almost disenfranchised by the tooling that was already on the market, that I wanted to build something new. I wanted to build something different. I wanted to build something that made it easy for folks to reflect after a bad thing happened and manage the whole incident process end to end. So we're all here today because, well, the industry is changing. We've been through a lot in the last 3 years, as Tavis was pointing out this morning. There's a lot more to learn from the incidents that we already have. You're all here because you want to learn and share about different ways and collaborate about them. And ultimately, everyone is trying to do more with less right now. I know you're tired of hearing that last bullet. I know I am. But it's true, you know? And a big question that came up at the speaker dinner last night is, is Devops still relevant? Is this still a thing that we're doing? And so I want to talk about that a little bit today too. DevOps is changing. And I think it's important that we don't get too clung to titles, but we're actually paying attention to what our business is asking of us and also what the industry needs. Companies are in transition phases all over the tech industry. They might be struggling financially. And the thing is, incidents are still always going to happen when times are changing. They might be happening actually a lot more. And it's now the moment after incidents, you'll get time after them to show what can be learned from them, what can be changed, and how it can be applied to what your businesses are experiencing today. So learning from incidents, when I say this, learning from incidents doesn't ask us why something happened. It's not a form to fill out. It asks us, why did it make sense for us to do it this way, right? And we're having more incidents right now, probably in a lot of our companies. Is anyone feeling like their companies are moving faster than they used to, like in the last several months or so? Yeah, that's happening in a lot of places in the industry too. Right? And so when stuff like that happens, it asks us why did it make sense for us to do it this way? So I'm actually going to ask that of the industry today. Why did it make sense for us to think about incidents in the way we have in the past several years? Why did it make sense for us to do these templated post-mortem approaches rather than like a learning from incidents approach that asks us how things made sense to us at the time? And the reason I'm going to do this is so that we can be better in 2023 and beyond. So part one, we're going to do what I like to call a how we got here. Part 2, we're going to do a tale of 2 incident investigations. In Part 3, I'm going to talk a little bit about what's next. So how did we get here? Now, let's talk about why learning from incidents is important. So to do this, I'm going to take you through a fake company. So let's picture the beginning of an organization. And to set the stage, I'm going to present a fairly simplistic, high-level, but accurate view of how expertise might get created in an organization. So this is a new company, pre-product market fit, not a lot of incidents, but they do have things they need to coordinate on. Things that make them drop everything and fix the thing right then. So let's picture our fictional company with 4 people. You can see I very creatively named them here. And person A, says, hey, I would like to use new technology to make this project go faster. It's going to set us up for success in the long run. Person B says, okay, if it gets us there faster and more reliably, let's do it. Person B says, is it easy to use? I'm not familiar with it. And person A says, I'll teach you all. It's fairly straightforward. I just want to pause there, right? Because I know we've all experienced this, whether we've been at the beginning of a brand new company or not. This happens a lot. Maybe some sort of decision record is created, and you know how in video games when you meet a new boss or something comes across the screen like new challenger is approaching, person A is now the expert in this new technology that they just wanted to try, right? So they say, I'll teach you all, it's fairly straightforward. And then maybe person B and person C develop some sort of semblance of expertise. Person D is doing other things, and there's not more than 3 people needed on this particular project at this time. So months pass. The feature that new technology was used for was a big hit for the company. That's great. It generated a lot of demand for our product, which means person B and person C are developing some sort of semblance of expertise, like we were talking about before, but we also need to hire a lot more people. And the expertise of person B and person C actually slowly evaporates. There's 1,000 things going on. There's a bunch of new people to ramp up on new technology, and new technology is just one of them. The usage of new technology is also expanding as this organization is growing. And most of the people in this chart start to have little deep understanding of what's happening in each other's areas and each other's sharpens because they're all moving so fast. So what actually happens is person A's expertise in new technology starts to slowly evaporate without person A realizing it or anyone around them realizing it because the system changes. And so I want to talk about David Wood's theorem. As the complexity of a system increases, and complexity increases as soon as you add another person, as soon as you add another technology, as soon as you add another feature, the accuracy of any single person's own model of that system actually decreases. And so you might think you know about everything that's going on, or you might think person A knows about everything that's going on here, but they really don't. And that's when it starts to get a little bit dangerous. So now an incident occurs, right? So what happens? So person C is first on the scene, and I don't know if you remember from before, but they used to have a little bit of knowledge, right? They realize they need help quickly, and they bring in person A, person B, a few other people. And an incident review happens, but it only includes a small group of people. It's done hastily, and some of the people that have expertise in new technology actually can't make the incident review. Management then gets a high-level report with high-level metrics and indicators on the incident and why it happened, right? Like management wants us to do a postmortem, but they really just want to know why this happened. They don't want, us to go through the learning part, right? We were all rushing. We added all these people in quickly. We're not focused on understanding how it was possible. We're not focused on understanding how the experts knew what they knew, how we knew to bring in person A, how any of this stuff unveiled. Parties engaged in incident response have different goals and priorities, right? Someone might be from CS talking to a customer on the phone. Someone might be an early engineer that was the reason new technology exists. Someone might be an executive Everyone has different goals and priorities. They're all impacted by this incident. And like I was talking about before, people are not actually aware that expertise is dwindling. So over time, Person A is involved in almost every single incident that involves new technology. They are incredibly valuable to the organization. They have a rich skill set. And as they manage this piece of technology, the organization grows. More people are hired around them with limited knowledge. They also have a lot going on. They don't have time to teach all the people about the ins and outs of new technology. Usually, Person A is an expert in not just new technology, but a million other things. This is just one thing that they have on their plate. And there's all these multiple diverse perspectives in the organization happening too, right? But we end up putting all of this work on Person A to explain to everyone else how new technology works. But Person A actually is really bad at explaining how new technology works. They're not great. When you become an expert in something, it's really hard to put yourself back in the shoes of when you first started because it's so inherent and it's so obvious to you. You can't meaningfully improve the expertise of people without looking at the cognitive work. And what I mean by that is learning how they work together, learning how they coordinate together, learning how they bring other people in, learning what they look at, what dashboards they're looking at, where they know to go, which in itself is work. This is work, you know? And a lot of our postmortems, a lot of our incident reviews in the industry today just say, this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened. That's not looking at the cognitive work. That's not looking at how people coordinated. That's not looking at how experts became experts. And so when you're doing a postmortem that way, you're actually doing yourself and your organization a huge disservice, right? It's almost theater at that point. Like, we're just proving that we know why the thing happened, but we're not showing that we knew how we solved it. We're not showing that we knew what went into it. We're not showing all the aspects of learning, you know? And it can be really awkward, right? It can be so awkward to put Person A on the spot or put someone that is not Person A on the spot and ask them how they knew to bring Person A in or what they were doing at this particular moment and why. But it is so important to do these things. It is so important to name names in your incident reviews, have other people speak besides the person facilitating it, and mention names in whatever report you come up with too. That's how you build this expertise. And that's what I mean by learning from incidents. So part two, we're gonna do some quick story time. So I'm going to take you through a semi-true account of two different incidents. And spoiler alert, they're actually the same incident. One incident is done the old way, the kind of standard way in the industry. And the second incident is done with a learning from incidents approach. But again, same case. So this incident actually really helped me underscore the value of studying cognitive work through the lens of incidents and just how much data we're leaving on the table. I came to do this comparison study because in a previous role, I was tasked to do an incident review of an incident that had already been reviewed, but they wanted to see another lens. They wanted to see another way of doing things. And I had to think a lot about how this work was informed. And so the first investigation I'll take you through was the first incident review for this and all of the findings that came out of it. And the second investigation is the same incident, but with fresh eyes and a different perspective. So investigation one, a seemingly innocuous incident that didn't have a lot of customer impact, didn't deserve or have time for a thorough postmortem. Does this sound familiar to anyone in the room, right? Yeah. I suspect that most folks in this room will experience something like this in the next couple days. It happens every day, something that we haven't called an incident, but we need to drop everything and coordinate on. I talk to people all the time, they're like, well, my company doesn't really have incidents. And I'm like, do you have things that that surprised you throughout the day, that you have to grab everyone, work, and figure out how to coordinate? that's an incident. That is something that is worth understanding, how that happened. So investigation 1, templated approach, completed by the members of the team most involved in the incident. The purpose was to file and report and explain why the thing happened. And so the template looked a lot like this. Summary, impact, detection, resolution, detailed summary, contributing factors, timeline, what went well, what went wrong, how we got lucky, action items, right? Like this should appease management, right? This template. It should, it should appease us. So we have a million other things going on, and this was a surprise situation, right? We just kind of want to get through this quickly. So what we don't know about this is how much time was actually spent on this document, who read it, who attended the meeting, if it was a meeting. We don't know what the purpose of this was, and we don't know what was difficult about handling the incident. When people were brought in, what was hard for them, what was easy for them, what was just general knowledge. And so here's what the summary said. A change was made to some of our search infrastructure's tooling, which updates which search index to look at each day. We were able to recreate the issue soon after it had been reported, and engineering was able to track down the problem and fix the bad configuration. Due to the nature of the bug, no pre-processing work had to be done in order for search to be working again. So detailed summary, it explains a little bit more of the technical specifics. The search index is split into collections each day. So this is a fictional e-commerce company, by the way, so SKUs are stock keeping units. So one larger collection for older SKUs and 2 to 3 collections for recent SKUs. Each collection can be individually submitted for reading or writing. And then since collections were created and added to the alias 2 days in advance, the first collection to be affected by a bug that was introduced a week before was 3 days ago, right? So we didn't notice what was going on for a little bit. So here's what the timeline said. A bug is introduced in the Python tooling. The December 6th collection is created and it's not added to the read alias. Newly created SKUs start going into the December 6th alias. The incident channel starts based on customer reports. The search team is paged and begins work. Issue with error rates is red herring. There's a couple more potential contributors ruled out. And then they identify a misconfiguration in read alias. It gets fixed. The fix is confirmed. The fix is applied to the file, right? So take a minute to look at this timeline. Think about what questions you still have about this incident. So as an engineer, if I'm reading this, reading this doesn't help me do my job better, right? Like there's nothing about this that actually helps me do my job better. This timeline alone is missing a lot. And so the impact, all e-commerce users had a degraded search experience for 20 minutes over which the incident took place. Lack of type system or static analysis in code. Alert that would have detected this is also broken. And I want to point out lack of an alert that would have. So lack of is pretty normative language, right? That can change depending on who you're asking in the organization. Lack of, what does that mean? Also, you could put these contributing factors in any incident that happened in the entire tech industry. What is the value of this, right? And like, if that alert would have detected it, then it would have, right? Like, right, we would have had an alert for this. What is the use case of it? Now, what went well? Fairly quick fix. What does fairly quick mean? You know, I can tell by the way they're writing this that they are happy with how they solved the incident. And maybe the company's happy with them as well, but why? What does fairly quick mean? If I'm a new engineer, right? And think about the average tenure in your company. You're probably having new engineers a lot, right? If they were to read this, how would they know what fairly quick means? Is it 20 minutes? Is it 2 hours? An alert that should have caught the misconfiguration was broken. If it should have, it would have, right? It's not useful to do these counterfactuals in incidents. It's not useful to say, this thing should have occurred and it didn't. It's useful to say how the thing unfolded instead. How we got lucky. Happened during a low traffic time. What is low traffic? What is the time it happened? And how is low traffic decided, right? How do I know this as a new engineer? Action items, fix the bug, fix the alert, check all of our alerts. Also, you could put these action items in any incident too, right? At the end of this first incident review, I'm left with a lot of questions. And I'm not blaming the team that created this incident review. This is a pretty standard incident review in the tech industry, right? But is it useful? I'm left with a lot of questions that don't help me with future incidents. The organization is less likely to have gotten ROI out of spending time on this kind of incident review. It's a box-checking exercise without a lot of value that doesn't show the impactful and beneficial coordinative work. Smooth coordinated effort was indicated to be taking place, but was never actually mentioned. And the team that created this and the person that mostly wrote this was person A in the situation. Again, person A, really busy, right? All of this makes sense to person A. We fixed the bug. It was fairly quick, low impact time. Everyone knows what that means in person A's head, but they don't, right? And so think about what questions you still have about incident 1. So investigation 2. It's always a little bit more complex than it appears. So again, this incident was so simple, not a big deal. We fixed it so quickly, not a lot of customers noticed. It was fine. Leadership was happy, things went down, but we love the search team, they're doing great, right? So investigation 2, it's always a little bit more complex than it appears. Conducted by an engineer outside of the main team, so they were technical enough, but they were not super deep in search infrastructure, so they could ask search the silly questions about how search worked, things that the search team would never document themselves. It included evidence from previous deploys, some well before the event. It was conducted by it included teams impacted, but they were not previously involved in the other timeline. It informed new team members about system dynamics. And the purpose of this was to engage the audience and to be read. I feel like this last bullet is where I see a lot of folks run into trouble because they don't know the purpose of their incident reviews. And they don't always write them with a specific audience in mind. So this was based off of a guide that Jelly created. It's free on our website too. It's called the How We Got Here guide, which is focused on how we got here. So we look at the background of the document, who responded, who investigated, executive summary, not just customer impact, but employee impact too. A lot of our orgs only focus on customer impact. I was in an incident once that most of the incidents in this org included like 10 engineers, and this one included 300 people jumped into the channel, and there was like very little customer impact, and so they didn't do an incident review. But that's clearly a lot of employee impact. Like a bunch of people disrupted their days and were not doing what they set out to do that day because of that incident. That's a good indicator that you should do a review on it. Key takeaways, triggering event, contributors and enablers, mitigators, difficulties during handling, and follow-up items. So I want to take us through the timeline. So what we were missing from incident number 1 was the context. And so how we get the context is actually by surfacing the raw data. I don't mean looking at what happened in Slack or looking at what happened in the Zoom recording and typing up your opinion of the situation. I mean actually putting the raw data in there, because that's how other people that are reading and engaging with the document learn. So we're going to start with this channel called Key Updates. And you'll notice that this channel started November 23rd. Our previous incident timeline didn't start until December 4th. And so we started in the Key Updates channel. Justin Bacon says, we're receiving requests right now related to the key change beta release. Justin is on the search team. Between November 23rd and November 30th, the search team received several pager-driven alerts on search not working, And invalid and revoked keys created the source of confusion and fatigue for the search team. So they had to do this key change release, which meant they were getting alerted for a bunch of stuff that was supposed to be in the search index not being there anymore, even though that was intended for it not to be there. So they were getting paged in the middle of the night for essentially nothing, right? So they're tired, they're getting paged for false alerts at 2 in the morning, getting woken up for no reason. So they introduce a PR, PR 22, on December 3rd to avoid the noisy alerts that they're getting as a result of this sudden product release that Justin was working on November 23rd. Partition to hold the indices for December 26th. They're always automatically created 2 days in advance. And then there was a second PR introduced to not update read aliases during a live migration. And this was a result of a migration taking longer than necessary, some cleanup work that was added to a non-related PR. We've all kind of done this before, right? We're working on a PR, we see something that we could fix, so we just throw it into the PR even though it's not relevant at all. So that happened here. In between December 4th and December 6th, errors were detected that were related to PR 23, but they were swallowed because of PR 22. And so this is where user search queries begin not reaching the December 6th partition. Now I want to bring you to another channel called spam detection that's happening in this organization, where fictionalized customer service representative Connor Jacobs happens to be online, and he's fighting bots from their competitors that are trying to scrape their website. So he is trying to prevent bots from being on their website. So he made a change to their marketing site. Doing something to stop these bots once and for all. He's deploying now. We'll run through some manual tests. So his manual tests, he tests add to cart. All 5 tests pass. He moves on to search. Search is not returning a SKU that I just added in test. I'm assuming that that's normal behavior. My deployment wasn't related to search. All right, moving on to the second deploy. We'll run through tests on this one too. So it's interesting because this organization actually didn't have a lot of details on how to run these tests either. It was kind of up to whoever was deploying to figure out how they would like to run some of these tests. All right, now I want to jump into the customer experience channel. So Natalie Demo is a customer experience person where Natalie is getting reports that customers are not getting search results for the items in the promo email. So what have we learned so far, right? There was a product enhancement that removed a bunch of keys several weeks ago. There was a promo email, that wasn't mentioned before, and people are not receiving results. Looking into it, Connor actually sees this because Natalie is his teammate, and he is able to identify it quickly. He's like, no, you know what? I actually think there is an issue happening. I'm going to page the search team. Connor's on customer service. He actually can't figure out how to page the search team. Maybe that hasn't been something that they've been trained in before. And so he's going to manually page them, which pages all of them. And it's the middle of the night. And so the entire search team jumps online at the same time. Are we starting to understand a little bit more how this incident got fixed so quickly? Yeah. So because we're noticing and anticipating and sharing capacity, all members of the search team hop online immediately. That's great. The search team is awesome. But it wasn't noted in the original timeline that it was also well outside the business hours for all of them. It's nice that that happened. It's not sustainable. And wow, I wonder why they all jumped online at once, why was coordination so smooth? How did Connor get all these people in the room so quickly? Oh, Connor was the 8th employee of this organization. He's been here over 6 years. He knows everyone that works there, and everyone knows Connor, right? And so you're able to get people in the room kind of quickly when you carry that sort of weight and that sort of power in the organization too. So now we're going to jump into the actual incident channel. So search team staging pretty quickly. Look how much of our incident timeline we actually pulled together before the incident channel started, right? And all of that was useful. And look how many people we were able to engage in the incident review, That incident review before just contained the members of the search team. It did not contain the marketing team. It did not contain the product team. It did not contain customer service. We're able to see just how quickly Nat and Justin are able to coordinate because they were involved and had context on the pull request before. And oh, spoiler alert, neither Nat nor Justin were technically on call for this incident. So she notices pretty quickly it's not in the read alias. Then Melissa jumps on line 2, I'm here if you need me. Okay, the aliases are fixed. I wonder why that happened. It's related to PR23. A variable named update aliases overrode the method named update aliases. Remember that cleanup work we did? Ugh, Python. So this actually makes me, as an incident investigator, want to dig into the language nuances of Python in this organization here, right? The history of it, why this happened, what purposes it's used for in this code base. And so when we pull all this timeline together, it kind of looks like this. Instead of this linear event, it's like, I don't know, how many of you measure time to detection and time to resolution at your orgs? Is that a thing? Good. I'm glad not a lot of people measure those things. But incidents don't unfold in linear ways, right? We think we detect it, and then we start to fix that detection, and then we detect something else, and we start to fix that, and then we're coordinating, right? And so all these places can actually help understand what's happening, right? So 3 different red herrings from 3 different people, an initial realization that all 3 hypotheses are false, 4th red herring so convincing, new person finds the actual trigger, participants of the incident start to make more sense about how the actual trigger occurred, meanwhile we continue repairing, oh there's more debate about how this actually happened. And I'm showing this because making a visual timeline actually helps keep people engaged in the incident. It's much easier, it's much more interesting to jump into something like this than this linear timeline in a tabular format. So some key takeaways from incident number 2. There were multiple notions of what it meant for search to be working. Incident handling excellence is influenced by team members' cohesiveness and collaboration. Changing code with alert has a lot of risk to it. There was an ease of coordination due to the familiarity with team, and there was a quick awareness of the issue at hand. So the thing about this is we naturally understand a little bit more about this incident by digging into it in a different way with a different lens. There's always more stipends to study, there's more people to invite to the meeting, and an incident review can be used to gain context on each other's sharpens. Remember when I said earlier, don't do this alone, bring others with you? In everything you do in your work, right? We're all impacted by incidents. It's not just the engineers, it's not just Devops or SREs or anyone like that. It's everyone in your org. And so find ways to enroll and bring them in. It will help your job, it will help their job. Understanding how experts think ends up creating more experts, and it makes your life a little bit easier. So I want to show you the difference between incident 1 and incident 2, right? So incident 1, really quick investigation because it was done by person A. Incident number 2 took a little bit longer because it was done by someone outside of the main team. The time of incident for incident 1 is 20 minutes. The second incident dates back 3 weeks before the event. 2 contributing factors for the first one, 8 for the second one. 2 action items that got completed, 6 for the second one. There were 2 people involved in the first incident. There were 8 in the second. There was no section for difficulties during handling. There was a dedicated section. The impact included customer and employee. And mostly, there were 140 readers of incident number 2, whereas there were 10 readers of incident number 1. And so it took an engineer ramping up on how search worked, how CS worked, how certain PRs took place. But the thing is, we actually took the audience of this incident review on a journey through learning from this incident with us. It didn't make sense for it to be entirely in the head of the author. We had people's names in the incident review. The first one named no names. And that gets into what it actually means to be blameless, right? In order to be blameless, it needs to be okay to name names. It's being blame aware. There's more action items that got done in the second incident because there's actually a greater understanding of what happened. There's more engagement. The action items are better. They're not ones that are too large and will never get done. They're not like add a whole static analysis system to our code, reconfigure our whole test base. It's things that people understand because they're enrolled in the incident a little bit more. And so these action items don't sit on your Jira backlog for months, they actually get done. And the value you get from preparing for this incident, like I know the preparation time was a lot longer, but spoiler alert, a big part of the value is in that preparation, right? It is in rotating that preparation and having different people do these things, taking a break from their work, learning about how search works, going back to their work. So what's next? Like I mentioned before, working to understand how experts think end up creating more experts, right? It helps our organizations. This is how you scale person A. This is how you scale your organization. This is how you avoid bloating it and just adding all these random people when you have this really long Jira backlog too, and you're constantly doing all sorts of things. And as you have more experts, it also prevents you from overhiring when you have problems because you're focused on creating a learning organization. So some tips and tricks, use more than just customer impact to warrant a review. Go do this with a simple incident that has happened in your organization recently, or an incident that people maybe don't care about, right? And go see if you can get a little bit more out of it. Make it engaging, create a record, schedule and make time for learning. Don't break your promises to learn. And put the responsibility of running an incident review outside of the expert. Leadership needs to support that. Making it engaging, right? These visual timelines can be really helpful, and they can actually help you set an agenda for your meeting. This is actually a direct screenshot from the Jelly product, and we have a free trial if you want to check it out. But doing all this can give the writer of the document more expertise. It can become training documents, inform chaos experiments, serve as professional development and refresher training. It can help enable a meta-analysis across incidents. I know all of you look at patterns across your incidents, but if you're putting garbage in, you're going to get garbage out. So make sure it's high quality in the individual points you're pointing in. It highlights how goal conflicts and changing organizational priorities affects things, and it identifies where headcount is needed or not needed, informs build versus buy decisions, and creates more experts. Your metrics around TTR and TTD and all the incident metrics you're collecting today are wrong. And they're lying to you, right? Stop making decisions on them based on that alone without having this additional qualitative context and qualitative data. When you become an expert on learning from incidents in your org, don't do it alone. Bring others with you. Bring others from specific teams that are not just on an SRE team or a DevOps individual. They are on the search team. They are on the add to cart team, right? Bring all types of individuals with you. So my challenge for you is to attend or run a post-incident review in the next 2 weeks, and I guarantee you can find something interesting to analyze. Look for those things that we saw in incident 1 and see if you see them in this incident, and see if you can pick them apart a little bit more. Keep the conversation going. Come find me. I'm local. I am a huge incident nerd. I'm always just happy to talk about this stuff. You can reach me at nora@jelly.io, but I'm also around today and tomorrow. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much. So Nora, do you got time for a question or two? Oh yeah, sure. We're running a little over, but that's okay. We got plenty of time today. Anybody has questions? If you want to come set up while we get questions.
I just have a small clarifying question. Mm-hmm. You talked about sharp ends. What are sharp ends?
Yeah, sorry, that's a good question. So a sharp end, it's actually, it was derived from Adaptive Capacity Labs. Richard Cook made this image. And so we have two ends, the blunt end and the sharp end. And so when someone is an expert, right, all we kind of see is their blunt end. We see that they're solving things. We kind of know a high level of detail about their job. The sharp end is actually how they do their job. All the nuances that they have to go into, all the dashboards that they have to look at, how they know where to look, how they know who to bring people in. It's the high level detail of how they do their work versus what we just see about their work. And so doing incidents can actually expose how they do their work, so we have like a deeper understanding of what it means for them to do their job, right? And so having that understanding actually helps us work with them better too, because we understand all the nuances of what they're going through on a day-to-day basis. We understand what makes their job hard. And so it helps us engage with them a little bit better, which helps our organizations in the future. It's a good question, yeah.
How do you reconcile, yes, LFI is so much better and we love this, but it takes so much more time, and how do you help people with making that trade-off?
Yeah, it's a good question. And so I think you can do it without actually taking massive amounts of time, right? I don't think you have to do this full LFI process. I think you can find little tips and tricks, right? Like pointing out language changes in incident reviews, asking how instead of why, evolving your template just a little bit. Evolve people a little bit at a time. You know, you don't have to tell them they're wrong. You don't have to like completely delete your whole process. You can like run something in parallel, you know, and that's why I suggested picking an incident that no one cares about just to start out with. But sometimes, you know, if your organization is having a lot of incidents, they're like, do whatever you would like, you know, try anything. We're open to whatever's happening here. I would just take what's happening in your organization and how change gets made and pay attention to that. So if, you know, the time that it takes is hard, just start off by just taking a little bit longer time, right? You know, if it usually takes a day, ask for a day and a half, and then slowly ramp it up from there. Show that the value has changed, right? And so it's mapping like, hey, I'm gonna take a little bit longer to the value that we're gonna get from it instead. And so that's why I like to show that table. It's like, yes, it takes a lot longer, but it helps us a lot more in the long run, right? I've been at orgs before where the response to an incident was like, we need to completely get rid of this system and spend a couple years replacing it. When really, we had 2 engineers that understood it. They had a million other things going on. There was no team for that. They were constantly getting paged in the middle of the night. And so instead, we suggested to hire someone on another time zone. And surprisingly, the system got a lot better, right? So we almost wasted an entire year and a half going down the wrong journey because we didn't take a solid look at this incident, which is really easy to do. And so you know, yes, it takes a lot of time up front, but it saves you years of mistakes in the long run.
Awesome. Oh,
yeah.
There we go. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank
you.
you.
Give a good hand for Nora. All right. Moving right along.